It is 9:35 p.m. on Saturday, April 27th, 2024. In the small Oklahoma town of Marietta, population 2,600, families are settling in for the night. Some are watching TV, others are putting kids to bed. A few are checking their phones, scrolling through the weather alerts they have been seeing all day. In the next 30 minutes, a tornado with winds reaching 170 miles per hour will carve a path of destruction through their community. 4 people will die. Dozens more will be injured. And Marietta will become ground zero for what meteorologists will call the worst tornado outbreak of 2024. But this is not just Marietta's story. This is the story of 4 days in late April when 165 tornadoes touched down across 6 states. When 2 violent EF4 tornadoes reminded America that tornado season does not follow anyone's schedule. When modern forecasting saved hundreds of lives, but could not save everyone. This is the story of April 25th through 28th, 2024. The weekend nature unleashed hell across America's heartland. The warning signs start days before the first tornado touches down. April 22nd, 2024. Meteorologists at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, are watching their computer models with growing concern. A powerful upper-level trough is developing over the western United States. It is what they call a negatively tilted trough, the kind of atmospheric setup that screams severe weather. By Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, forecasters are already highlighting the upcoming weekend. The language in their discussion is unusually direct for this far out. They are seeing something they do not like: significant severe weather potential, all modes possible. Translation: we are looking at tornadoes and not the weak kind. April 24th, 2024. Wednesday, 3 days before Marietta, the Storm Prediction Center upgrades their outlook. They are now predicting a moderate risk of severe weather for Friday across the Central Plains. Moderate might not sound scary to you, but to meteorologists, it is a big deal. It is the second highest category before the dreaded high risk. But here's the thing about tornado warnings in Oklahoma. It is Tornado Alley. People hear warnings all the time. Most pass without incident. Most are false alarms. Most do not result in anything more than heavy rain and maybe some hail. Most is not all. Thursday morning, April 25th, day 1 of the outbreak. Let me explain what's happening in the atmosphere, because the ingredients coming together are textbook perfect for tornadoes. You need 3 things for a tornado: instability, wind shear, and a trigger. Think of it like building a fire. Instability is your fuel, wind shear is your oxygen, and the trigger is your match. That morning, warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico was streaming northward into the plains. Dew points were climbing into the 60s and low 70s. That was the instability, the fuel. Meanwhile, winds aloft were screaming from the southwest at 70, 80, even 90 miles per hour. That was creating incredible wind shear, the spin that tornadoes need. And the trigger was a sharp, cold front barreling eastward out of the Rockies. Everything is aligning. Everything is perfect. And everyone knows it. By mid-morning on April 25th, the Storm Prediction Center issued a moderate risk for portions of Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. They specifically called out the potential for strong, long-tracked tornadoes, the kind that stay on the ground for miles, the kind that level towns. The first tornado touches down at 1:42 p.m. Central Time near Lincoln, Nebraska. It is small, only EF0, and it dissipates quickly. But it is the first domino. Within minutes, more tornadoes begin forming across Nebraska and Kansas. Storm chasers flood the roads, their cameras trained on massive supercells building on the horizon. At 3 p.m., the pace accelerates. Tornadoes are now being reported every few minutes, near Rulo, Nebraska, and outside Hiawatha, Kansas. The National Weather Service offices in Topeka and in Omaha are issuing tornado warnings back to back. Radar screens light up with classic supercell signatures, hook echoes, debris balls, and velocity couplets showing rotation so tight it looks like a bullseye. But the day's first casualty does not come until early evening. Outside Westmoreland, Kansas, an EF4 tornado with winds of 165 miles per hour struck a rural home. The house is completely destroyed. One person dies. It is a grim reminder that even with all our technology, all our warnings, tornadoes still kill. By midnight on April 25th, the count stands at 22 confirmed tornadoes across Nebraska, Kansas, and Iowa. Property damage is extensive, but the death toll, miraculously, remains at 1. Forecasters breathe a small sigh of relief. They should not have. Friday, April 26th, Day 2. If Thursday was the warm-up act, Friday is the opening performance. The same atmospheric setup that produced Thursday's tornadoes has shifted slightly east, and now Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas are in the crosshairs. Morning arrives humid and oppressive. Temperatures climb rapidly, and by noon, it is in the low 80s across central Oklahoma. But it is not the heat, it is the humidity. Dew points are in the upper 60s. The air feels thick and heavy. Everyone notices it. This is the kind of day where the atmosphere feels loaded, like a spring wound too tight. 1 p.m., the Storm Prediction Center does something they do not do often. They issue a high risk for severe weather across central Oklahoma and parts of Kansas. High risk is the highest category, reserved for days when significant, widespread, life-threatening severe weather is expected. Local meteorologists in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Wichita interrupt regular programming. This is not a drill. This is not crying wolf. This is real. Get your plans ready. Know where you are going to shelter. If a tornado warning is issued for your area, take it seriously. By mid-afternoon, the first storms are already firing along the dry line in western Oklahoma. Within an hour, they are rotating. Within 2 hours, they are producing tornadoes. 3:47 p.m., the first significant tornado of the day touches down near Wakamis, Oklahoma. It is rated EF2 with winds of 130 miles per hour. It destroys several homes and outbuildings. Debris is scattered across pastures. Metal roof panels are wrapped around utility poles. But everyone in its path survives. Then the storms really get going. Between 4 p.m. and midnight, Oklahoma is under siege. Tornado after tornado, supercell after supercell. The National Weather Service office in Norman issues 37 tornado warnings in 8 hours. Think about that. A tornado warning every 13 minutes for 8 straight hours. Storm chasers across Oklahoma witness scenes they will never forget. A massive wedge tornado near Elk City. Multiple vortices dancing around each other near Chickasha. A rain-wrapped tornado near Shawnee that radar shows, but nobody can see through the deluge. Amateur video captured that evening shows what it is like to be in a small Oklahoma town when a tornado warning is issued. Sirens wailing, cars rushing home, people running with their kids, the sky turning an ominous green-black, and then the rain, horizontal and violent, followed by hail the size of baseballs shattering windshields. But Friday's worst damage comes after dark, and that is when things get deadly. Let me tell you about nighttime tornadoes. They are the most dangerous kind for one simple reason. You cannot see them coming. During the day, you might spot a tornado in the distance. You might see the wall cloud descending. You might see the funnel forming. At night, all you get is lightning, occasionally illuminating something you desperately wish you had not seen. Research shows that nighttime tornadoes are more than twice as deadly as daytime tornadoes, even when you control for intensity. People are asleep. People do not take warnings as seriously. People do not react as quickly. And people cannot see what is coming. On Friday night, April 26th, Oklahoma gets hit with multiple nocturnal tornadoes. One of them will change everything. 7:15 p.m., just after sunset. Severe thunderstorms are moving across south-central Oklahoma. The National Weather Service issues a tornado warning for Love County and parts of Carter County. The warning specifically mentions the town of Marietta. Cody and Shelby Jones are at home with their children. They have been watching the weather all day. They know tonight is supposed to be bad. When the warning comes through on their phones, they do not hesitate. They grab the kids and head to their storm shelter. Larry and Mary Harless, both in their 70s, have lived through Oklahoma weather their entire lives. They have survived tornadoes before. When the sirens start, they head to their interior bathroom, the safest spot in their home. Gene Washburn is 84 years old. He lives alone. He is a Korean War veteran, a grandfather, a pillar of the Marietta community. When the warning comes, he does what he always does. He takes shelter in his hallway. And Ryan Carr, 35, is driving home from work. He hears the warning on his truck radio. He can see the storm approaching in his rearview mirror, backlit by lightning. He speeds up, trying to outrun it. You cannot outrun a tornado. 9:35 p.m. The tornado touches down 2 miles southwest of Marietta. In the darkness, nobody can see it. But it is there. A violent EF4 wedged 3/4 of a mile wide, packing winds up to 170 miles per hour. It moves northeast at 35 miles per hour, headed straight for town. The Jones family, huddled in their storm shelter, hear it first. Shelby later describes the sound as beyond description. Not a freight train, not a jet engine. Something worse, something primordial. The sound of the earth being torn apart. Then comes the impact. Their home, a well-built brick structure, begins to disintegrate above them. The roof goes first, peeled away in seconds. Then the walls. The shelter holds, but barely. Debris hammers the door. The pressure changes make their ears pop. One of the children is screaming, but they can barely hear it over the roar. It lasts 90 seconds. 90 seconds that feel like 90 minutes. When it is over, when the Jones family emerges from their shelter, they find their home is gone. Not damaged. Gone. The foundation is swept clean. Their car is nowhere to be found. It will later be discovered 1/4 mile away, wrapped around a tree. But they are alive. All of them. That storm shelter saved their lives. Others are not as fortunate. The Harless home takes a direct hit. The tornado, at its peak intensity, obliterates the structure. The bathroom where they sheltered offers no protection against 170 miles per hour winds. Both Larry and Mary are killed instantly. Gene Washburn's home is similarly destroyed. Emergency responders find him in what is left of his hallway, killed by debris that tore through his house like shrapnel. Ryan Carr never makes it home. His truck is found off the highway, flipped multiple times. He died trying to outrun the storm. But perhaps the most heartbreaking story belongs to a young couple whose names have not been widely released. They were taking shelter in a mobile home when the tornado hit. In Oklahoma, in Tornado Alley, mobile homes are death traps. This one is ripped apart. She survives, critically injured. He does not. By 10 p.m., the tornado has moved northeast, away from Marietta. In its wake, 4 dead, 30 injured, and a path of total destruction 3/4 mile wide and 11 miles long. Entire neighborhoods have been leveled. The high school has sustained major damage. The local emergency medical services building has been destroyed. In the darkness, with power out across town, survivors emerge into chaos. The sound of gas leaks hissing. Car alarms blaring from vehicles blocks away from where they were parked. And screams. People calling out for family members. People trapped in rubble. People in shock, wandering through debris fields that used to be their neighborhoods. The Marietta Fire Department, operating out of a damaged station, immediately begins search and rescue operations. But it is dangerous work in the dark. Live power lines are down everywhere. Natural gas is leaking. Structures that are still partially standing threaten to collapse. And another line of severe storms is approaching. By midnight, mutual aid has arrived from surrounding communities. Ambulances from Ardmore, Sherman, Texas, and Durant converge on Marietta. A temporary triage center is set up in the parking lot of a church that somehow survived. The injured keep coming. Lacerations from flying debris, broken bones, head trauma. One man is pulled from the rubble with a 2x4 impaled through his leg. But even as Marietta struggles with its catastrophe, the outbreak is not over. Saturday, April 27th. Day 3. The day isn't supposed to be as bad as Friday. The storms aren't supposed to be as strong. But tornadoes don't care about forecasts. Across Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, supercells develop through the afternoon and evening. Most produce only weak tornadoes. Most cause minimal damage. Most pass without major incident. But one doesn't. 8:35 p.m. Central Time. Near the town of Elkhorn, Nebraska, on the western outskirts of Omaha, a supercell thunderstorm produces what will become the outbreak's second EF4 tornado. This one is different from Marietta's in several ways. It is not as wide. It is not on the ground as long. But it is moving through a much more populated area. Elkhorn has over 24,000 residents. It is not a rural town. It is a suburb. And that means more people, more homes, more potential victims. 8:47 p.m. The tornado, now at peak intensity, with winds estimated at 170 miles per hour, plows directly through a densely populated neighborhood. Modern homes, built to code, built to withstand Oklahoma winds, are swept away. A 2-story brick home is reduced to a bare foundation. Vehicles are thrown hundreds of feet. Trees that stood for 50 years are snapped like toothpicks. The Ramirez family, parents and 3 children, are in their basement when their house collapses on top of them. They are trapped for 45 minutes before firefighters can dig them out. All survive, but the youngest child, 6 years old, has a severe head injury. She will spend 3 weeks in the hospital. The Martinez home takes a glancing blow. The garage is destroyed, but the main house stands. Inside, grandfather Eduardo Martinez, visiting from Mexico, thinks it is an earthquake. He has never experienced a tornado. His grandson has to explain, in panicked Spanish, that they need to stay put. The storm passes. They emerge to find their neighbors' homes completely gone, while theirs stands with only moderate damage. The randomness of tornado destruction is laid bare in a single block. But Elkhorn gets lucky in one crucial way. The tornado hits early evening on a Saturday, when most people are home and awake. Everyone receives the warnings. Most people have time to shelter. The death toll, miraculously, is 0. However, the damage is catastrophic. The National Weather Service will later determine this tornado produced EF4 damage across multiple residential areas. At least 120 homes are destroyed or severely damaged. The economic cost runs into the hundreds of millions. For Omaha area residents, the Elkhorn tornado is a wake-up call. This is the worst tornado to hit the metro area since the Omaha tornado of 1975 that killed 3 people. It is a reminder that even cities, even suburbs, even places with modern construction and modern warning systems are vulnerable. Sunday, April 28th, Day 4, the final day of the outbreak. The atmospheric pattern is finally shifting. The trough is moving east. The severe weather threat is diminishing. But before the outbreak ends, it has one more punch to throw. Afternoon storms developed across Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. Most were just thunderstorms, severe but not tornadic. But several produced brief tornadoes that caused localized damage. In southern Illinois, an EF4 tornado ripped through farmland, destroying barns and outbuildings. In Indiana, an EF1 tornado touched down in a rural area, uprooting trees and damaging several homes. These were the outbreak's final gasps. By evening on April 28th, 4 days after it began, the outbreak finally ended. The upper-level trough moved into the Atlantic. The severe weather threat diminished. Tornado warnings ceased. The final statistics are staggering. 165 confirmed tornadoes across 6 states over 4 days. 6 deaths, all in Oklahoma. Over 150 injuries. More than $2 billion in damage. 2 violent EF4 tornadoes. 7 strong EF3 tornadoes. It is the most significant tornado outbreak of 2024. But here is what is remarkable. As devastating as this outbreak was, it could have been so much worse. Consider this. In April 1974, the super outbreak produced 148 tornadoes over 2 days and killed 319 people. In April 2011, the largest tornado outbreak in history produced 360 tornadoes over 4 days and killed 348 people. The April 2024 outbreak produced 165 tornadoes over 4 days and killed 6 people. 6, not 60, not 300. 6. Why? How did modern America face one of its worst tornado outbreaks in years and lose only 6 lives? The answer is forecasting, warning systems, communication, technology, and people taking those warnings seriously. The Storm Prediction Center issued outlooks days in advance. Local National Weather Service offices issued dozens of tornado warnings with an average lead time of 23 minutes. That is 23 minutes for people to get to shelter. 23 minutes that save lives. Emergency managers activated warning sirens. Meteorologists interrupted programming to provide wall-to-wall coverage. Wireless emergency alerts sent warnings directly to phones. Social media spread the word, and critically, most people listened. But those 6 deaths, all in Oklahoma, all on that Friday night, tell another story. They tell the story of nighttime tornadoes and how dangerous they remain. They tell the story of how mobile homes offer no protection. They tell the story of how even with warnings, even with sirens, even with every technological advantage, tornadoes still kill. Let me tell you about the aftermath, about what happens when the cameras leave and the headlines fade. In Marietta, the rebuilding starts immediately. The Oklahoma National Guard arrives within hours. Crews from across the state converge to clear debris, restore power, and search through rubble. FEMA arrives by Monday morning. The Red Cross sets up shelters. Volunteers from across Oklahoma show up with chainsaws, work gloves, and a willingness to help. Shelby Jones, who survived with her family in their storm shelter, becomes an advocate for underground shelters. She speaks at town halls, at schools, at church groups. Her message is simple. Our shelter saved our lives. That shelter cost $6,000 to install. My family is priceless. Within 6 months of the tornado, Marietta sees a 300% increase in storm shelter installations. Other Oklahoma towns follow suit. The state expands its storm shelter rebate program. 1 tornado, 4 deaths, and suddenly, thousands of Oklahoma families are taking shelter seriously. In Elkhorn, the story is similar. The neighborhood hit hardest is bulldozed and rebuilt within a year. But every new home includes either a reinforced safe room or an underground shelter. The building codes are reviewed and strengthened. The warning siren system is upgraded. And here's something beautiful that emerges from tragedy. The Elkhorn community, rallying around the families who lost everything, raises over $2 million through fundraisers, benefit concerts, and donations. Local businesses provide free meals to displaced families for months. Contractors work at reduced rates or donate labor entirely. A local church opens its doors as a temporary shelter and distribution center. The Ramirez family, whose youngest daughter was severely injured, receives support from the entire Omaha metro area. Strangers pay their hospital bills. A local business donates a vehicle to replace the one destroyed. When they finally return to their rebuilt home a year later, hundreds of neighbors line the street, welcoming them back. This is what happens after tornadoes. Yes, there's devastation. Yes, there's loss. Yes, there's trauma that lingers for years. But there's also this: communities coming together. Neighbors helping neighbors. Strangers becoming family. Today, more than a year later, if you drive through Marietta, you can still see the scars. Empty lots where homes once stood. New construction that looks different from the older buildings surrounding it. Trees that are younger, smaller. But you'll also see something else: resilience. The high school was repaired and reopened within 6 months. The local hospital, damaged but still standing, underwent renovations and expanded. New businesses have opened. Young families are moving in, attracted by the tight-knit community they saw emerge from tragedy. Shelby Jones lives in a new home, built on the same property where her old home was destroyed. The storm shelter is still there, underground, waiting. She checks its batteries monthly. She stocks it with supplies. And every spring, when tornado season arrives, she watches the weather a little more carefully than she used to. In Elkhorn, the neighborhood is rebuilt and thriving. Property values, surprisingly, have increased. People want to live in a community that came together like this one did. The Ramirez family is there, their daughter fully recovered and starting middle school. Every April 27th, the neighborhood holds a remembrance gathering, not to dwell on what was lost, but to celebrate what remains. And across Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and the other affected states, communities marked by this outbreak are stronger, more prepared, more aware. Because here's what April 25th to 28th, 2024, taught us. It taught us that tornadoes are still a deadly threat, that our technology, as good as it's gotten, can't stop these storms, that warnings save lives, but can't save everyone. Nighttime tornadoes remain disproportionately lethal. But it also taught us this: we can prepare, we can build shelters, we can heed warnings, we can look out for our neighbors, we can rebuild, we can recover, we can emerge from the worst that nature throws at us and come back stronger. On April 25th, 2024, nature began throwing everything it had at America's heartland. For 4 days, 165 tornadoes ripped across 6 states. The destruction was immense. The fear was real. The losses were heartbreaking. But when the winds finally stopped, when the debris settled, when the survivors emerged, they proved something that tornadoes can never destroy. They proved that communities are stronger than storms. Preparedness saves lives. Technology, used properly, makes a difference. And even in our darkest moments, even when everything seems lost, people have this incredible capacity to help each other, rebuild, and carry on. The April 2024 outbreak is now a chapter in tornado history. There were 6 deaths when it could have been 60 or 600. That is not luck. That is forecasting. That is warnings. That is people listening. The next outbreak is coming. It always does. Tornado season does not end just because we want it to. Somewhere in America, probably sooner than we would like, another supercell will form. Another tornado will touch down. Another community will face nature's most violent storm. But they will face it with better warnings and better shelters than ever before. With neighbors ready to help. With lessons learned from Marietta, from Elkhorn, and from every town that has faced these storms and survived. The wind will always blow. The storms will always come. The tornadoes will always form. But we will be ready. We will be watching. We will be prepared. And we will survive.